Archetype Productions. I'm Becky Phippen.
I'm Emma Baker.
And I'm Becky Daniels.
And this is our evaluation DVD commentary.
We use the typical film noir conventions such as voiceover, mise-en-scene, that's costume and props, such as the trilbies, the trench coats, the old-fashioned guns and the scene setting like we've got here. We also use the makeup and things, the hairstyles and the language and things like that. We also use the archetypes and character specific, such as femme fatale and PI. Obviously Rose was our femme fatale, and we used it in that she was the one that was powerful and she was the one that led the robberies and things, and then the PI was the helpless, he was in love. We used the voiceover to explain the narrative of the story, like what happened beforehand, what happened after and things. We also used it to give some background to our characters, so how they met, what they did before and after. We obviously used and took some of the conventions from short film noir such as Reign of Death, Telltale and Bloody Olive. From Reign of Death we took the futuristic dystopia, the voiceover, the sort of crime element of it. From Telltale we took the femme fatale features, the big red lips, the costume.
We used sort of the typical kind of music that they would use, but in a different atmosphere. So, whereas, how did we?
We used the music we didn't use it in the film, we just used it at the beginning and the end to build up the tension to the straightaway action.
Yeah, so we didn't really use music through our actual film, we sort of just used the voiceover and the music at the end, so at the titles and the credits. And then the character conventions, we had the femme fatale, so typical of a film noir, and it also showed that she was in charge of him. She was the most powerful because she had the gun, and she led him. So the colour scheme, obviously typical black and white for our film noir, but we also had the red as well. We thought we wanted to sort of add that modern effect to it, and it also is sort of symbolic as to her being more in control, so more powerful, and also sort of the passion they had between each other. There was sort of romance in the storyline. And also the camera shots, we had a lot of cutaways, just so we could explain the story whilst it was going on. And that also sort of led to the narrative and how he was describing her, which was quite nice. And then the big red lips, obviously, it was quite symbolic of the film noir. Also the dissolve in, dissolve out, sort of the time lapse, as to how it was sort of an editing technique that was typical of film noir, and also it sort of helped us with the time lapse, how we wanted to sort of make time.
The things we challenged during our film noir genre and conventions were the traditional time period and the use of the sound effects, being the spaceship sound ambience and the
Spaceship metal doors.
Yeah, the spaceship metal doors. The lack of music emphasises the tension and the romance, like Emma said, as we only use them during the credits at the start and the end. Our film noir also had an unusual ending, as most film noirs like Bonnie and Clyde and Gun Crazy have quite a depressing and tragic ending. Whereas ours was quite happy and they ran off towards the sunset, as you might say.
Obviously we used a lot of other types of media, such as to talk about our film, such as our blog, the magazine reviews and the radio trailers. I personally used the minimalist theme on Tumblr for mine because I thought that it reflected the retro/vintage feeling that the film gave off, whilst also making it quite futuristic. It also uses the same sort of font as we used in our script and in our magazine review, which was Curry and You.
For my blog I used reds, beiges and browns to reflect the vintage and the colour scheme of the film noir.
The actors' names.
Just to make them a bit bolder.
Yeah, and also to sort of show the importance and the sort of like we did in our film with the red lips and the candle. We used a film strip and we put that in with shots of our film, like us filming, as well as like shots of the actual film, such as like Rose and Jackson sat at the table or the gun. For our magazine review, we've all used the same sort of theme of black and grey, sort of fading into a reddy colour. We also typed a few little words up into red, like important ones, such as the name and the directors, and the media technologies we've used and learnt to use throughout the planning, research, filming, editing and developing process were... For the radio trailer, we used a combination of the film's voiceovers, like Jackson's voiceover, which we actually used Miles to voice over. So we used a few of his lines, such as the beginning, when he's talking about how it happened. We also used one of Rose's lines, and then we got an outside actor to do a voiceover to explain like the name, like a tagline, and also the date that it was released. Of course they were going to change it, so we'll probably show you the before and after footage. For our radio trailer, we used inspiration from trailers such as Logan's Run and Aeroplanes, I think it was, which are both quite film noir. They've got vintage sort of sounding voices like you had during the wars, like the 1940s, the radio presenters then. And we also used the spaceship ambience and the door sounds that we had from that we put in our film to make it futuristic, as well as our music. We also thought that we're going to add Archetype more throughout the radio trailer. It was suggested to us that we did that.
Yeah.
As it's used in Logan's Run.